Last week on Tuesday, OpenAI executives smiled through a meeting with Disney, only to walk out and instantly vaporize a $1 billion deal by secretly executing their own video platform with zero warning. Killing Sora isn't just a catastrophic corporate blunder, it's a desperate gasp of a monopoly bleeding out on the floor. While they try and sell you premium AI features, an internal audit reveals a mind-numbing $115 billion cash burn that has pushed them to the absolute brink of financial collapse. They didn't just lose their technological moat, they completely shattered the illusion of their own supremacy. Today we're doing a complete data-driven autopsy on Silicon Valley's biggest fall from grace, starting with the sheer blinding arrogance that built this house of cards in the first place. So let's rewind to truly understand the arrogance of the golden era. On December 8th of 2015, OpenAI incorporated in San Francisco, and what were they? A non-profit research lab. The founding syndicate was the Mount Rushmore of tech bros. You had people like Sam Altman, Elon Musk, Ela Skutzkever, Greg Brockman, and Reid Hoffman, and Peter Thiel. With that, they tossed in $1 billion with this highly idealistic, savior complex mandate. We're to build safe, transparent AGI for humanity, free of corporate greed. Right. Early on, they did some cool research, deep learning, and in 2016, they gave us the OpenAI Gym, and they had a OpenAI 5 project stomping human players in Dota 2. Pretty cool. But then 2017 happens. Google drops a research paper called Attention is All You Need, and it introduces the transformer architecture. OpenAI takes that framework, iterates the absolute living fuck out of it, and then drops the first generative pre-trained transformer, GPT, in 2018. But here's the problem. Training a massive neural network costs an obscene amount of money, and the non-profit model just wasn't going to cut it anymore. So in 2019, they pull off this massively controversial structural pivot. They become a capped public benefit corporation, which, guess what, was a Trojan horse, because it allowed them to suck billions of venture capital and secure exclusive Microsoft compute power while still pretending to be the good guys. By 2020, they dropped GPT-3, which was a absolute monster. 175 billion parameters, 16-bit precision, 350 gigabytes of storage. It was writing code and poetry like that you literally could not tell was not from a human. And with this, they reached 1 million users within 5 days. They were the fastest consumer software adoption in the history of the digital world. They were untouchable. But that hypervelocity blinded them. It masked the horrific unit economics of running these models, and it bred an institutional arrogance that left the back door wide open for competitors. And yeah, oh man, did the competitors walk straight through. Throughout 2024 and 2025, Google was quietly leveraging its insane TPU infrastructure and consumer ecosystem to close the gap between themselves and OpenAI. And by Q1 of 2026, the power dynamic was completely flipped, because Google went for the complete overtake with their multimodal design, and on February 19th of 2026, Google dropped Gemini 3.1 Pro. And it absolutely smoked OpenAI's flagship GPT 5.4, which didn't even come out until March 5th. Sure, GPT 5.4 barely held on to coding, scored a 71.7 on the Sweetbench verified test, but beating out Gemini, which only scored 63.8. But in advanced cognitive reasoning, Google took their lunch money. On the ARC AGI 2 benchmark, Gemini 3.1 hit a 77.1 and GPT 5.4 hit 73.3. On the GPQA Diamond Graduate Level Science Test, Gemini hit a 94.3 and GPT hit a 92.8. But here's the real kill shot, the context window and the cost. Gemini 3.1 offers a 2 million token context window, while ChatGPT 5.4 offers only 1 million. Gemini's output limit is 65,000 tokens compared to OpenAI's measly 32,000. And on top of all that, Google is only charging $2 per million tokens for input and $12 per million tokens for output, while OpenAI is demanding $250 for input and $15 for output. With this, Google was able to undercut their enterprise pricing by 20%, doubled their context window, and provided a native text, audio, image, and video processing without any clunky submodels. You're a budget-conscious enterprise team. Well, who exactly are you picking here? Exactly. But if you think Google is the only problem OpenAI has, you're not paying attention to the East. Because while Google attacked from the top, Chinese open-weight models executed a flawless disruption to the bottom. And all while facing strict US export controls on advanced chips, labs like DeepSeek, Alibaba Cloud, and Zifu AI didn't use brute force, they had to use architectural elegance. So enter DeepSeek v3. This thing is a masterpiece of efficiency. It uses a mixture of experts architecture with 671 billion parameters, but it dynamically activates only 37 billion per token. And the benchmark results were insane, because it scored an 88.5 on the MMLU and a 90.2% on the Math 500. And on the Brutal Codeforces programming benchmark, DeepSeek hit a staggering 51.6. And the vaunted GPT-4o architecture only scored a pathetic 23.6%. And while all that was happening, the financial disparity between the two of them made me want to vomit. Because DeepSeek v3 was trained for a measly $5.5 to $6 million, while OpenAI spends between $100 to $200 million to train frontier models. By early this year, the DeepSeek API was priced at 27 cents per million tokens, which is 95% cheaper than OpenAI. Then you have Alibaba dropping Qwen 3 and Qwen 2.5 Max, supporting 119 languages, matching GPT-4 and GPT-5 tier performance, and on top of that, they open sourced it using Apache 2.0 and MIT formats. The Chinese market took the exact intelligence OpenAI was trying to sell as a premium luxury good and handed it out for pennies. Their monopoly was completely shattered. And with that, we can lead into the massive systemic elephant in the room, the absolute failure of AI workflow automation. And if you guys want to know what the ramifications of a problem like this causes, you guys can go check out that video right there where I discuss for 60 minutes talking about the collapse of AI and the collapse of society. But let's get back to the fact that AI is great at doing isolated parlor tricks, but when you try to integrate them into a multi-step production pipeline without a human babysitter, they fail. And MIT metrics back this up. There's a staggering 95% failure rate for enterprise AI integration projects. And why? Because of hallucinations, a lack of engineering discipline, and this completely brain-dead reliance on unstructured vibe coding. And in the creative space, fully automated AI channels are getting crushed by the algorithm. Consumers are sick and tired of copyright infringement and synthetic slop. Businesses realized that OpenAI wasn't selling an autonomous human replacement. They were selling a stochastic optimization tool that was way too expensive to justify. Now, let's talk about the most humiliating disaster of this entire saga, the collapse of Sora. Unveiled in 2024, it blew everyone's minds. Woolly mammoths, Tokyo streets, hyper-realistic minute-long videos from just text prompts. And in September 2025, they launched a standalone app. It had a vertical TikTok-style feed, native audio, deepfake character tools, and by November, it hit 3.3 million downloads. But beneath the viral marketing, the unit economics were a complete fucking joke. Leaked internal analytics showed that running Sora infrastructure cost them $15 million a day. And do you know what the lifetime cumulative revenue was for that entire platform? A measly 2.1 million. Yeah, $15 million a day to run, and in total they made $2 million in lifetime revenue. And on top of that, as the days went, users bailed. Professional creators realized that they couldn't actually use it for production due to render latency and zero editorial control. With that, by February of 2026, downloads plummeted by 66%, down to 1.1 million. Through the relentless copyright and deepfake lawsuits, the entire thing was a toxic asset. So on Tuesday, March 24th of 2026, with zero warning, OpenAI executed Sora, the app, the API, the portals, dead. And on top of that, they dropped a pathetic tweet. We're saying goodbye to the Sora app, to everyone who created with Sora, shared it, and built a community around it. Thank you. What you made with Sora mattered, and we know this news is disappointing. Speaking of disappointment, you know who else was really disappointed? The Walt Disney Company. In December of 2025, Disney and OpenAI signed a historic 3-year alliance. Disney committed to a $1 billion equity investment with warrants. In exchange, Sora got the IP rights to generate short-form content with over 200 protected characters from Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, and Disney Animation. No talent likeness allowed, obviously. And on top of that, they were going to pipe this fan-inspired content straight into Disney+. Disney was going to be their ultimate enterprise client. And then OpenAI went ahead and killed it. Investigations show that Disney and OpenAI executives were in a joint development meeting on the exact same day the shutdown was authorized. Disney was completely blindsided 30 minutes after the meeting ended. An insider called it, quote, a rug pull. A good thing for Disney is the fact that the capital hadn't officially transferred, which most likely it wouldn't have, but that's speculation, and Disney instantly voided the $1 billion agreement. And soon after, they put out a cold corporate statement respecting OpenAI's decision to exit the video generation business. And then boom, the biggest media conglomerate on Earth was alienated. Google's VO platform swooped in to take the crown. And after that bloodbath Sam Altman authorized, he reorganized the teams, and all that compute went to enterprise coding tools, AGI research, and the new robotics division internally called SPUD. So now let's talk about their financial hemorrhaging, their $115 billion black hole, which seems to be inescapable. If we look back to early 2025, they bragged about a $10 billion annualized revenue run rate. What they didn't tell you is that in 2024, they burned through $5 billion in cash. Now the projections are apocalyptic. $14 billion net loss for 2026, a $35 billion net loss for 2027, and a $47 billion loss in 2028. By 2029, their projected cumulative cash burn will hit a staggering $115 billion. To put that into perspective, Uber burned $31.7 billion to reach profitability, and the literal Manhattan Project cost roughly $30 billion adjusted for inflation. WeWork burned $20.7 billion, Rivian lost $16.9 billion, and Tesla burned through $10 billion. So you're telling me OpenAI is important enough to burn through $115 billion without anyone batting an eye? And those numbers are kind of light, because if they push for AGI parameters by 2030, their cumulative cash burn hits $665 billion. Their targeted adjusted gross margins plummeted from 46% to 33%, because hardware costs quadrupled. All while they don't project positive cash flow until 2030, while Anthropic is targeting to break even by 2028. And worst of all for them, they can't rely on retail users to bail them out anymore. Because the reality is, people are starting to get sick and tired of subscriptions. Go ahead and watch this video. And consumers are tapped out. The SaaS boom is dead. Why pay OpenAI $20 a month for ChatGPT Plus when Gemini Advanced is bundled into your existing Google Workspace? And on top of that, why even pay when DeepSeek R1 is running locally for fractions of a cent? The subscription crash destroyed their retail runway. Which now brings us to the final desperate act, the SoftBank bailout. Facing a $14 billion deficit of dead descriptions, the loss of Disney's multi-billion-dollar deal, and the Sora humiliation, OpenAI ran out of traditional VC options. Nobody was going to underwrite more losses at a $840 billion to $1 trillion valuation. So on Friday, March 27th this year, just 3 days after killing Sora, SoftBank Group authorized a $40 billion unsecured bridge loan. Masayoshi Son syndicated this monster through JP Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, Mizuho, SMBC, and MUFG. SoftBank is now in for $64.6 billion as their total, owning 13% of the company. They call it a commitment to US AI infrastructure. It's just fucking bullshit though. Just look at the mechanics. It's a 12-month bridge loan, maturing on March 25th of 2027, and it's unsecured. In corporate finance, an unsecured $40 billion note with a 12-month fuse means banks are absolutely terrified of your operational model. It's a ticking time bomb. And that means SoftBank and OpenAI have exactly 1 year to find $40 billion in permanent liquidity. This is a forced march to an IPO in Q4 2026 and early 2027. They took this debt purely to avoid a private market down round that would have completely crashed the entire tech sector. So what's the conclusion for OpenAI? They are trapped between a $115 billion deficit to chase AGI and a consumer market that refuses to pay their margins. And if you want to know exactly how this story ends, just look at FTX. Just a few short years ago, we had another tech messiah named Sam, backed by billions in blind venture capital, promising to save the world while casually burning through unsustainable amounts of cash. But the absolute second the market called his bluff and demanding to see actual liquidity, a $32 billion empire evaporated in just 72 hours. And now this guy's literally sitting in a federal prison. Now, yeah, I know OpenAI isn't running a blatant crypto Ponzi scheme, but the financial arrogance is the exact same. When you rely on infinite hype and unsecured bridge loans to mask catastrophic unit economics, the gravity of reality will eventually snap your neck. And now they're going to be forced to dump this risk onto open public retail investors. They will have to abandon their cool consumer toys and become a boring B2B enterprise infrastructure company. And that means for OpenAI, they're never going to be the Apple of the AI world. They're never going to be the next Google search monopoly. They're going to be a highly leveraged, heavily scrutinized infrastructure utility, crushed by the gravity of their own financial hubris. And I wouldn't be surprised by the end of the decade, they will be as relevant as Netscape Navigator.